This is Flashtalks, the Uncut Edition. Say it just how you feel it.
No filters, no fluff, just real talk with the full Flashpoint fam. Get with it.
From hot takes to belly laughs, the crew is locked in and ready.
From debates that might get a little spicy, including all VIP members.
This is where vibes meets voice, jokes meets truth, and we talk things.
We are here to get real.
It's raw, it's real, and it's about time.
But big conversations. This is Flashtalks, the Uncut Edition. Flash fam, what are the things then now? Real people, real voices, real conversations.
Flash Talk, the Uncut Edition, at 7 p.m. every Thursday, right here on Flashpoint.
Hello, hello, and welcome, beautiful people, to Flash Talk, the Uncut Edition. I'm your moderator, Nicola Williams, and tonight we are going deep. We're going raw and real, uncut, just how you like it. We're not just sipping tea or scrolling headlines tonight. Instead, we are tackling a topic that hits close to the heart: protecting our children. Yes, we're talking about safety, awareness, online dangers, and the power of community. Because let's be honest, it takes a village, and sometimes that village needs a reality check. So here we are. But listen, it isn't a doom and gloom session. Oh no, it's not. This is about solution, conversations, and empowerment. We're talking about how we, as parents, guardians, educators, and role models, can step up, speak out, and shield our children as much as we can from the playground of the digital jungle. Now, I'm not flying solo tonight. We have an amazing guest who is a personal friend of mine. We go way back. We actually grew up in the same community. And her name is Mrs. Jodian McLeod. Now, Mrs. McLeod holds a Master of Social Work from the University of Pittsburgh, as well as a Bachelor of Social Work from Oakland University. She is certified in psychological first aid, as well as integrated behavioral health care. So I'm not just sitting beside any pia person. I feel honored, as a matter of fact, to be sitting beside such a wonderful individual. On top of that, she's a practicing social worker with the Department of Children and Family Services, providing support to children and families who are vulnerable, who are at risk of exploitation, some form of oppression, poverty, or lack of access to resources. Her prior social work experience in the United States included advocating for children and their families, parenting and life skills support through education, advocacy, and counseling. And as Mrs. McLeod walked in this evening, the first thing I saw was her hair. And I was saying, oh my goodness, she should have been on the show last week when we were talking about hair. And I must say, Mrs. McLeod, that last week I decided to ditch the wig.
Okay.
And because I felt so confident last week, I decided to ditch it again this week. But I'm not sure I'm going to keep it up.
It's working.
Okay, thank you. But you know what? We're going to dive right in tonight, and you know that I like to engage you, our online viewers. And so we want to peel back the layers on tough questions like, what does real protection actually look like in 2025? Mm-hmm. How do we teach our children to speak up when something feels wrong? What do we do when the threat isn't outside the home, but inside of it? How do we balance protection with giving our children space to grow? These aren't easy conversations, but they are necessary. Now, before we hear from Mrs. McLeod and a few parents here as well, I want to hear from you. So in the chat, because I do not want to feel like, you're leaving me hanging, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I want you to respond in the chat. And My question to you is, parents, have you ever felt overwhelmed trying to keep up with what your children are exposed to online? The question again, have you ever felt overwhelmed trying to keep up with what your children are exposed to online? You can just say yes. No explanations needed if you do not want to. And as a matter of fact, let me say this loud and clear. Let me say it loud and clear before we move further. You do not have to be a perfect parent. As a matter of fact, we are not, right? But what we're asking, what we're encouraging tonight is that all we have to do is to be a present parent. And that's what our children crave from us. And once we are present, I must say, Mrs. McLeod, that we are doing a good job.
More than a good job.
More than a good job.
Very important.
It is. Nothing beats presence, and presence with the C and not presence with the TS. You know what I mean? Right. So we're going to kick things off tonight, and we're going to start, with Mrs. McLeod. So my question to you tonight is, for those who don't know, because there may be some myths around social workers, So for those who don't know, what exactly does a social worker do when it comes to child protection?
That's a very loaded question.
I know.
First of all, let me say thank you for extending the invitation for me to be on with you tonight. Your topic of discussion, very relevant, very needed, very necessary.
Right.
Your question is very loaded because social work today looks very different from what it looked like many years ago, in that social workers are in a lot of spaces. We occupy many different spaces, hospital, mental health facilities, business places. So, it could look very different as you go across the spectrum. However, my organization where I work, I'm not here personally representing them tonight, operating independently right now as I was invited here. However, my organization is one of the leading social service providers in the Cayman Islands, and social workers do many different roles working for the Department of Children and Family Services. However, I would have to say that our role, though different, the aim is the same. Working with families, working with children, to provide them with resources, support, services to help them to reach their fullest and highest potential. That's across the board, regardless of where you work as a social worker, because that is what we do. What we do is engage families and people in communities and provide them with the support that is needed. So first, an assessment of that need has to be done, and then it is provided. So hopefully that answers that, broad question.
Very much so. And what you forgot to mention is that you also support me.
Well, that too. We support other agencies.
Yes, you do.
Schools, the police. We work with multiple agencies to provide them with education.
Yes.
And any support that is needed for the family, for the child, for the community.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And every time I call with a question, or if I need you to clear up something, you are always ready to give recommendations.
Social workers are a bank of resources.
Very much so. Very much so. And I truly appreciate you, and I want you to know that.
Thank you.
Now, what's the most misunderstood part of your job in child welfare and safety?
Well, hands down, I would have to say that as it pertains to child welfare, once we engage a family, the first thing they believe is that we're there to take the children. We're there to remove the kids out of the home. We're there to take the children from them. And that is a very hindering part of what we do, because it prohibits parents from cooperating, because they believe wholeheartedly that once we become involved as it pertains to child safety and welfare, we're there to take the children away from them. But that is one of the most, negative misconceptions that are out there, because our whole aim is to work with the family to keep the child in the family.
And you heard it right here,
Yeah.
right? The social workers, they're not here to take your children away from
Right.
you, right? They're here to offer support
Yes.
so that you can actually keep your children in a safe environment.
And I
right?
have to say, Nikki, that there are some truth to the myth because of how long ago that came about. As I said, when I started, social work, what it was then is not what it is now. So earlier on, social work started out, child protection social work started out that way, where social workers did come in to the family when the family was considered dysfunctional and that the children were not reaching their fullest potential. And the aim would be to place the child where we believe that they would be most comfortable and away from risk. And so we did a lot of that as the profession began, where we did do a lot of removing children, placing them in the foster care system, or even with other family members. So there is some truth to the myth, but I would like to encourage families tonight to help them to understand that we have moved away from that. The profession of social work has grown so much.
It's dynamic.
Very dynamic. Very, very dynamic. And sometimes families only get to see one side, but it's very multifaceted.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, now that you mentioned that, right? How do you identify, though, when a child is in danger, especially in situations that it may not be obvious? It's quite subtle, but you can tell, because I'm sure you have been trained to pick up on subtle things, but it is still considered dangerous, right?
Well, let me start here, and I hope I'm not jumping the gun, but I'll say this to segue into that question. Here in the Cayman Islands, the approach that is used for child safeguarding is quite multidisciplinary, in that even though DCFS is the entity that has oversight, we don't do it alone. We engage a lot of other agencies and departments and to look at safeguarding from a multidisciplinary lens.
Right.
So we engage schools. We engage the police. We engage hospitals. Other social service agencies. You might know about MASH. You've heard the term MASH.
Oh, yes.
Right. So MASH is the multi-agency safeguarding hub, and it is the agency with oversight for safeguarding in the Cayman Islands.
Right.
But that in itself, multi-agency, is multidisciplinary because we look at a total approach of the community. We engage the community in providing safeguarding. Now, identifying and safeguarding a child, that you believe to be in danger, can be, again, you have to look from a wide scope, but there are some telltale signs, right? First of all, as a parent, you have to know your child.
Correct.
That's the first thing.
Correct.
Right? You have to know your child because no one child is the same.
Correct.
So while one behavior is normal for your child, it may not be normal for mine, right? So you have to know your child. And then you have to, within that lens and within that scope, understand that if you see your child doing certain things, this is out of sorts, it's out of the norm. So things like withdrawal, when a child starts withdrawing from their usual activities, whether it's locking themselves in the room, whether it's they're with people but they're not engaging, locked up in their shells, don't want to engage in activities that they used to find fun, that's a red flag.
And what about children who didn't normally wear jackets? And then all of a sudden, even
being secretive, whether it's being secretive with words or even, like you said, covering up. All of a sudden they're covering up their bodies more than they used to. Those are telltale signs as well. Depression.
Yeah.
That's a telltale sign.
Yeah.
One big thing, which should be right off the bat, skipping classes. If your child starts skipping classes, skipping school, participating in things at school that they never used to, gang-related activities, a sudden need for wanting the approval of friends that they never cared to want those approvals, smoking, using drugs, oh yes, vaping. Those are some, you have to, again, like I said, look at the behavior of the child. And when we're doing safeguarding, we depend a lot on the family members that see that child every day, because let's face it, we're not in the home.
Correct.
We're not in the home. We don't see that child every day. So we depend solely, completely on the interactions that child has with the family, or even at school, because they spend a lot of time with teachers.
Correct.
So we depend on that information that is shared. So you'll find us coming to you, talking with you, asking you those questions about, who your child is, to help us to determine whether the risk factor is great or whether it's something that you should worry about or not worry about.
And I appreciate your response, and I don't know if you remember that when I invited you here, you're coming to the Uncut.
Right.
So I have Uncut question for you.
Okay. Well, it's important to say none of this is staged, right?
No, none of it. None of it
staged
at all.
These are raw answers, raw experiences, and we love to share them.
So I'm not even looking at you right now.
Oh boy, here we go.
So my question to you, so you mentioned the school, you mentioned the home.
I know where you're going.
Oh yes, I'm going there.
No, we're going.
But you didn't mention the church.
Oh, let me drink some water.
Maybe I should sip as well.
Let me take a sip.
Janine was fanning us earlier.
It was hot.
It was hot.
And I suddenly feel my ears on fire.
But
what let me want to know.
Yes. So you have given us some tips on how to thank you so much, Janine. You have given us tips on what to look for in the schools and in the home.
Yes.
But do you believe that children also need protection or need to be safeguarded while in the church? And if so, what can be done to ensure that our children speak up if somebody does or says something that makes them feel uncomfortable? And who can they speak to?
Okay, let me see if I can make this answer concise. All right, firstly, it's important to know that the people who hurt our children the most are persons who are closest to them.
Correct.
Because children are trusting and loving by nature.
Yeah.
So it is the person that they trust the most, that has the most access to their personal space, that is easiest in hurting them. Right? Because number one, it's always unexpected. It's unexpected because that person is in a position of trust.
Right.
And so, to your question, yes, it is very important that we teach our children personal space, and who is allowed to access their personal space.
Correct.
When and in what circumstance.
Correct.
Your child is not too young to know this. In my line of work and in yours, I am sure you teach the children good touch, bad touch.
Yes.
That's where it starts.
Yes.
It begins there because babies understand good touch, bad touch. They understand what is good, they understand what is bad. They understand when you tell them what their personal spaces are. Once explaining that to them in a tangible, real way, they understand. So it's important to have those conversations. But yes, unfortunately, church is not always a safe space. And I say that and use the word unfortunately because it is. Church can lay damage on children because there are people in church that is untrustworthy.
Right.
However, because the church environment is so trusting, as parents, one of the damages we do, and I'm saying one of the damages we do because I also try to steer my children away from it, it's a damage that we don't see. Because we're a community of people that love and we're supposed to love and trust everyone. Everybody's auntie and uncle.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
At church, everybody is auntie and uncle.
Yes. Yes.
And one of the things we do as parents, the mistake we make is allowing our children to hug every auntie and hug every uncle and kiss every auntie and kiss every uncle. That contradicts what you try to teach your child about personal space. Because now it means that every auntie or uncle at church is allowed in their personal space.
Yeah.
I have seen parents go as far as force their children to hug auntie and uncle at church. Don't do that, because sometimes your child know more than you. And they can pick up on things and sometimes aren't able to express and explain what is happening.
Correct.
And again, auntie and uncle holds a space of trust.
Yeah.
And so you're telling your child, you can trust these people, right? So you can kiss them and they can hug you, and you should kiss them and you should let them hug you, not knowing that those persons can also put a world of hurt on your children. So I would say be temperate. I would say vet. I would say be careful who you allow in your child's personal space. And if your child is uncomfortable in a situation, don't force them. Don't push them. Don't do that. Another thing I would say is creating safe space in your home. Parents say when things happen, I hear this a lot, but my daughter or my son know that they can talk to me about anything, but can they?
Have to be intentional.
Right.
Yeah.
Can they? How many times have you shunned them away when they come to speak? Or how many times have you said, that's a big people conversation? It is these things that prevent them from speaking because you don't allow them the room to speak. What your role is to teach your child as a parent how to respectfully have conversations, right? How to respectfully approach you in situations. But no conversation should be off limit, because you run the risk of your child going outside and learning what you did not want to teach them, or how you didn't want to teach them from someone else.
Wow.
So it's important for you to create that. Safeguarding is not for social workers.
Correct.
Safeguarding is for the community.
Correct.
Safeguarding is for the family. Safeguarding is for everyone. It's social workers only provide you with the tools, right, and the resources, but at the end of the day, the family has to do the work. And you as the parent have to teach your child how to discern certain things.
Agreed.
Yes.
Did we say it was uncut?
Very much so.
Very much so.
Yes.
And what you're sharing with us tonight, it is for everywhere, right? The supermarket, schools, and even the playground sometimes. And this is not to say you can't trust people, but at the same time, we want to ensure that our children understand boundary and what healthy boundary actually looks like. Because
that is the key.
Even at school, I can say that we do encourage our children, like if you want to hug, you ask.
Right.
At school.
Yes.
Right? At home, mommy and daddy may kiss you, but here at school, it is not allowed. So we are helping them to create that boundary, that space, so that if they feel like somebody has gone in their space, they can say, Miss.
Yes.
Right? Absolutely. So they are learning to speak up from an early age.
Yes.
Right?
Very, very much so.
Very much so. And, I'm trying to cover as much as possible in the time that we have.
If it seems like we're running, just drop your questions. If it's not answered today, I'm sure at a later time we can. Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
And so, we have seen in recent news from one of our neighboring country of children and young adults who have gone missing, right? and the outcome has not been favorable,
Right.
right? So, Mrs. McLeod, how has technology and social media changed the way children are put at risk today?
Greatly.
Okay.
Greatly. And again, I'm always going to go with the parents first. I say greatly because, again, going back to the behavior of the child, children today are not socialized the way we were, Nikki.
That's for sure.
Right? When we were growing up, we grew up in an era where we go outside and play. Right? And even now as a parent, I find myself pushing that on my child. But the reality is, that's not even a space that is created these days. Children are not outside playing. So when you send your child outside now, it's like, what are they going to do? Play with themselves. Because there's no child in the community running around like when we were growing up, right? So the first thing is to understand that as a parent, that children today are not socialized the way that we were. And children spend a lot of time inside, right?
On what?
They're going there. And sometimes that is the fault of parents, because while children are not socialized like we were and they don't go out and play, parents don't make time intensely to spend doing activities with their children. One, we're too busy with work, right? And let's face it, we work a lot, right?
For sure.
And by the time we get home, we're too tired to do anything. The children too, because they spend all day at school. But I always tell parents to try to utilize the weekend as best as possible. And even in the evenings. One grave mistake that parents make today, they believe every gadget that comes down from the sky, the child must have. And while they're giving the gadgets to the child, they're not supervising. There's no parental control. So giving is one thing, but not accessing that gadget with the child, not knowing what the child is doing, not knowing what websites and apps and those things that the child is exposed to, is a grave misfortune for the child. Because now this child is being exposed on a platform that you know nothing about.
And sometimes they're even more vast.
Oh yes.
On the technology than.
Oh yes. I can tell you that I have two sons. One is 5 and one is turning 15. And even the 5-year-old knows the stuff about what the 15-year-old. And I don't understand it. But what I don't do is leave them up to their demise. I'm very vigilant. I'm like, sometimes I think it's overbearing. But where I work and where I sit, I see too many things to just leave my kids up to their own demise. So that's one of the things that I wish parents would get a handle on. Your child don't have to have every gadget.
No.
They don't have. What is an 8-year-old doing with what is phone name? iPhone? Why does your 8-year-old or your 5-year-old have a phone? Tell me. There's no real reason for that. The time that the child spends on the screen, you could be using that time to do other things. TV, one of the things that I found out through my job in doing this safeguarding work, children go on some app and some platforms that they can communicate with people that they don't know. They go in these chat rooms that they are live to adults. I had one child being groomed by an adult in a chat room that, what is the name of the platform? Discord? No, it wasn't Discord. Discord was one of them. There was another one where, not Roblox, that too, like, I don't like Roblox because it just, your child can choose any game and play with anybody. But there is this platform that they go on and they can turn on the video, so who is on the other side can see them, but it shifts room without their permission. So 1 minute the child can go on and they're in a age appropriate chat room, and then it shifts into a chat room that is adult, and they have no control over it. You have people flashing children, they're naked. Yes. and children are exposed to those things and parents don't know. Another thing that I see creeping up is anime.
I've heard. I've heard.
These are the Asian style, and not knocking any culture. It's a type of cartoon that is from the Asian culture, and some innocent, some not. But the anime, it's almost like grown folks. Not almost like, it is grown folks content in a cartoon style of presentation.
So they look innocent.
Yes, it's innocent because it's in this cartoon character, but they're doing adult things, and the children are watching this. These things are on Netflix, they're on YouTube, and they can access them because parents don't put, one, parental control, and two, age appropriate content. And you can do all of that as a parent, but sometimes parents don't know.
And we will be right back. We're going to take a short break and the conversation continues. Stay tuned. Oh, by the way, hold on. Did you click the like button? Go ahead and do that right now. And we'll be right back.
When you need ultrasound that's safe and effective, you must visit Asai Ultrasound Imaging. They're conveniently located at number 4 Chestnut Center, Smith Road, Georgetown, Cayman Islands. With experienced technologists with over 20 years experience, their friendly staff will make you comfortable while you get your procedure done. Asai Ultrasound Imaging is open Mondays to Fridays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays. Call Asai Ultrasound Imaging 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426. That's 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426.
This is Flashtalks, the Uncut Edition. Say it just how you feel it.
No filters, no fluff, just real talk with the full Flashpoint fam. Get with it.
From hot takes to belly laughs, the crew is locked in and ready.
From debates that might get a little spicy, including all VIP members.
This is where vibes meets voice, drops meets truth, and we talk things.
We are here to get real.
It's raw, it's real, and it's about time.
Big conversations. This is Flashtalks, the Uncut Edition. Flash Farm. What are the things then now? Real people, real voices, real conversations.
Flash Talk, the Uncut Edition, at 7 p.m. every Thursday, right here on Flashpoint.
And welcome back. So while we're just gonna turn things around a bit, and we do have a parent with us tonight, and this parent wears a lot of hats. However, I do not want to speak to this individual as an educator, as a church elder, none of those. I want to speak with this person as a parent. And so I want to welcome, I almost said Elder Bennett, but I would like to welcome Mr. Bennett. And I'm just going to go right into it. And my question to you, sir, is And I'm coming to you. Yes, as a parent, what is your greatest fear when it comes to your child's safety in today's world?
I fear that my boys, I have two sons,
Right.
I fear that they will become anti-God
Wow.
in how they express themselves,
Wow.
in what they believe,
Mm-hmm.
in what they become
Wow.
sexually. But my greatest fear is that they are not saved in God's kingdom of glory.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. And do you feel like you're equipped with the right tools and information to keep your children safe, especially from online dangers?
Despite my exposure, despite the resources I have available, I embrace the fact that it was God who lent them to us.
Amen.
And without His protecting care, without His miraculous power, then we are powerless to provide the right and safe environment. So I believe that through His grace, through His mercy, with His help, adequate resources have been provided.
Yes.
We have access to the resources necessary to help them to grow and love and become functional members of society.
And so then it's for us as parents to tap into and use those resources that have been provided. And again, the Bible still works, right? Still can use the Bible as a guide to read with our children. It's old school, but it still works. I grew up on that. And there are also even other resources that are available. And Mrs. McLeod walked with some tonight as well, which she will share later. And those of us who are online, I want you to chime in as well. Feel free to answer in the chat. And I want to acknowledge those of you who are online. We appreciate you. And thank you for sticking and staying with us, according to Ellie, right? So go ahead.
Nicola, before you move on, I wanted to just piggyback a bit on what Mr. Bennett said.
Yes.
Because as a Christian parent, this is a great fear, and I share that same fear with you, is that in spite of all of the tools we have, the knowledge of God that we have and try to share and impart with our children, we'll lose them to the world, because let's face it, we cannot compete with it. But the encouragement I have is do your best.
Yes.
Do what God has asked you to do.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, our children will choose their own path.
Yes.
And rightly so.
Yes.
We can only hope that we not only trained them, but we lived a life before them that emulates the principles that we've been trying to impart to them, so that they will in turn take those things in and appropriate the guidance throughout their lives that we have provided them with.
Amen.
Because like you said, and that's so funny, because just this evening my husband and I had a conversation, and that was one of the talking points. I said to him that in spite of what anyone thinks, change in the world and all of that, yes, there have been changes, but one thing has never changed. God never changes. And the expectation that He had for the family, what He ordained the family to be from the inception of the world, has not changed. We have moved away from that. The world has moved away from those principles and what God has ordained it to be. But God never changed. So it means then, And I will say this again as Christian parents, because if you're not a Christian parent, you may not be able to appreciate this information, right? So as a Christian parent, do not stray away from those, because it is the ultimate truth.
Correct.
It's the ultimate truth. And if you stick to that, you cannot go wrong as a parent.
Yeah.
You cannot go wrong as a parent.
And wherever our children go, whatever path they choose, I'm sure at some point they will remember the foundation that we would have laid for them. You know? Now, this is a heavy one, but I'm coming to you, sir. What steps have you taken in your own home to prevent your children from becoming vulnerable to predators or even abduction?
What we have done in our home is to create a safe environment, or as safe an environment as possible.
Okay.
And safe includes being open. So we empower our boys to be vocal, to say how they feel and not be offended. And might I add that there is a thin line between having an open door or knocking on that door or barging in on that door.
Yeah.
As a parent, you have to be willing and consider when it is appropriate
exactly
to exercise a particular approach. So you empower them to be open, to speak their mind. You trust them to an extent, but verify, not trust blindly. You provide instruction.
Yes.
And you lead by example.
Yes.
And you encourage them.
Yes.
To exercise self-control.
Yes.
You encourage them to develop an attitude of studying, an attitude of prayer, an attitude of worship.
Yes.
Because let's face it, we will not have them around to teach them at all times. So we will have to usher them into the unknown.
That's true. And I get to understand that we do have some viewers on Zoom. So if there's anyone on Zoom, hello, those of us who are on Zoom, if you would like to chime in and answer the questions asked, please let me know. And this would be a great opportunity for us to hear from one of our persons on Zoom.
And I go back to the point you raised earlier about
Yes,
word.
sir. Yes.
I think that is the primary resource.
Yes.
And what I find with my 5-year-old is that he loves to challenge me with a Bible verse. So he would say the verse and then ask me where it is taken from. I don't always get them right, but I've got most of them right. And he's so impressed. He's so blown away by the fact that I remember where it is taken from.
Amen.
So let us encourage our children to memorize the word.
Right.
And if we hide the word in our heart, according to the psalmist, we will not sin against God. If we apply it
to
our situations, especially our temptations.
Amen. And I'm going to ask this question, and I would love to hear from our viewers online, and it goes to Sir Edgar as well. Do your, remember back then we talk about stranger danger? So do your children know what to do if they feel unsafe or if a stranger approaches them? Have you had that talk with them? So if they feel like they're in danger, do they know what to do if they feel unsafe, irrespective of where they are? So I know that even where I work, it is paramount that there's a registry, so we know the persons who are responsible for picking up children. So if your name is not on that register, even if the parents sent you, we will not release that child. So does the child know that as well? Do they know your phone number? Right? So and as Mrs. McLeod said, they're not too young to have, as a matter of fact, maybe when we were growing up, probably we were too young.
It was taboo.
Right? But our children, they are so mature, believe it or not. Very intelligent children, and they have questions that probably we were afraid to ask. And so we realize that we have to be having the conversations very early with our children. So do your children know what to do if they feel unsafe?
Yes, to a large extent. And that is not in isolation. It is within a package. So your children must know that it is not safe to indulge in certain activities. It is not safe to partake of certain foods, for example.
Okay.
It is not safe to relate to individuals in a particular way.
Right.
So it is not just relating to strangers, so to speak, but it is part of the whole package.
Correct.
Part of a lifestyle.
Correct.
Of making sure you create those boundaries and they operate within those boundaries and they are held accountable and they are willing to say to you that they are not comfortable doing certain things.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And it is not just with strangers.
Yeah.
Correct.
But they should feel, you should so educate your children in such a way that if you are doing something to them that is untoward, they will say, no, you're not supposed to be doing that.
Yes. Absolutely.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And my boys are such that if I'm insisting they do something, I have to justify why.
Why?
If they're going to receive punishment, I have to justify that punishment because they are going to see me as being unfair.
Yes.
And if it doesn't make sense to them, I'm going to know.
Yes.
It's part of the conversation.
Yes.
It's very important. It's part of the conversation.
Exactly.
To jump in on what you're saying, why it's so important. Again, Nikki, when we were growing up, asking why wasn't allowed.
Yes.
In your head.
So I dare say that it's not because we didn't know to ask the questions. We couldn't ask them. Right? Yeah. There were certain questions that were seen as grown-up questions.
Yeah.
And when our parents told us to do something, we just did it. We didn't ask why, because asking why, I dare say what would happen.
Yeah.
But that has also led to some of the parenting mishaps that we have today, because we are afraid of providing a platform for our children to speak, because that's what we are socialized to. And so we are here saying that it's important to create safe spaces at home, but then when our children ask why, we revert to some of those old ways of you shouldn't ask why. But it's important to explain to them why, because it needs to make sense. They need to understand where they went wrong or where we went wrong. And they need to understand that with every action, there's a reaction. There's a circumstance for every situation, whether it's positive or negative. And they need to understand that. And it is our job to explain that to them. So creating safe spaces is very important. And that's part of, like you said, a part of the package. It's not an isolated conversation. It's an everyday conversation.
Correct.
It's a part of the conversation you have with your children as a family.
Yeah. And you have answered most of the questions that I took time. Which that's very good. Right? And because I wanted to find out if there were new forms of exploitations or danger that you have seen over the years. But you have mentioned the games and all those things that seem so innocent because they're considered age appropriate. But if you were to view them, then you realize that indeed they are not. And so Mrs. McLeod, what is
Yes.
one thing you wish every adult understood about child protection?
I think I said it earlier, that the people who do the most damage to our children are the people who are closest to them.
Yeah.
And I explained why. Because they have access. They're in a position of trust or a position of authority.
Yeah.
And children are open to that.
Yeah.
So as parents, we need to teach our children the dangers of that.
Yeah.
We need to teach them how to identify when someone has ill will towards them. And it's very important that we teach our children the personal space,
Yeah.
Understanding what it means to let someone in and how far, what is the boundary. So for me, I would have to say that is it. When we were off camera, Edgar mentioned something, and it goes back to the church question that you asked. He mentioned the sleepovers, and he mentioned the camps. Adventist people have a lot of camping, right? And while it's a good thing, I'm a product of camp.
Me too.
While it's a good thing because you have the opportunity to socialize, meet friends, learn about new perspective, new things, it is also a playing ground for people who want to groom young children.
Yes.
And so we have to teach our children boundaries.
Yes.
I don't do sleepovers.
Yeah. Yes.
Period.
Yes.
I don't, because I trust nobody but myself.
Talk.
I trust nobody but myself with my children.
Yeah. Yeah.
My husband would probably tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
So I do not allow sleepovers.
Yeah.
Neither at my home or them going somewhere. Now, are there people who, if maybe they want to come to my house, I'll allow it? There might be. I haven't been tested. I haven't been, that opportunity has never presented itself, and I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. And it is because you can't control what happens.
Yes.
When you close your eyes and you go to sleep, you don't know nothing that's going on in your
house. Yeah. Yeah.
You know absolutely nothing that goes on in your house. And so I don't do sleepovers. My children have never done camp, but that's also probably because with the landscape that we live in, Cayman is not so fluent on camps. Like when we were growing up, we're from Jamaica, we had a lot of camping and stuff like that. Well, aside from the Easter camp that the families do together and stuff like that. But that's a great point that you raised, because we're talking about safeguarding our children. And while it seems innocent and rightly so, we also have to be vigilant because no one can care for your child like you.
And I have a friend who doesn't like, as an adult, she doesn't like shaking hands, especially at church. And she explained that she doesn't like it because growing up, the older men, when they took her hand, would be playing with her hand middle. And so that traumatized her when she found out what it meant, and it wasn't something innocent. So now she doesn't like to shake hands because she's still traumatized by it. And
go ahead.
I just want to acknowledge some of our viewers online. I see Christine Pearson. Thanks for responding, Christine. I see Janet H. And she said that the auntie and uncle thing is so true.
Yes.
I see JB. Good evening, JB. And also Mel. Oh gosh, I don't want to butcher your name, so I apologize in advance. Mel Bar JM. Good night. Good night. I'll just say Mel. And Mel also says, I remember growing up, my parents were not my friends. Were you told you must be seen and not heard? Or was it the other way around? Right.
But it was understood.
Right.
They were in authority.
Yes.
Yes.
You learned that pretty early, didn't you? Yep.
Yes. And that's a good concept to learn. Your children need to know that you are the figure of authority in the home. But there also has to be a balance.
Yes.
So that's a good place but there needs to be balance, because while you are the authority, you can't be so rigid that your children are afraid of you, because we're not trying. I don't want my children to be afraid of me. I want them to respect me. I want them to respect the parenting role that we present to them at home. So, rightly so.
And you want them to know that you respect them as well.
Absolutely.
And why we have the rules that we have.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it is for their own protection.
Yes.
And when we say no, it's not because we hate you. It's quite the reverse.
Right.
So not everything we're gonna say yes to, even when we can. Right? Because they need to understand that life doesn't work that way. Right?
Yes.
And so I see Gina, and Gina says trauma begins in childhood.
Yes.
Gina also says there was a healthy fear of my parents, and
I like that.
And she said,
I like that. I like the healthy fear.
Healthy fear.
I like that. I do like
Gina?
that, because healthy fear speaks to the boundary.
And could it be respectful?
And yes, I like that. I definitely like that.
Yes. And as we wind down, Mrs. McLeod, Sir Edgar, I'm coming to you. You stay put. You don't go anywhere. Let's say you had 60 seconds to speak directly to parents who are watching now or even listening, right? What would you tell them? Go ahead.
Oh my. That I haven't already said?
If you want to sum it up, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for safe spaces in the home.
Yeah.
And I believe my childhood has taught me that. Because while my home was not abusive, I don't necessarily believe it was a safe space, in that, going back to mommy saying, it's because I said so. Right? Mommy saying, because I said so, or the seen and not be heard. I heard that growing up as a child. So things happened to me as a child that I've never repeated to my mother, or even my older sisters, who some of them might be watching right now. I never repeated, because I never felt safe in that way to approach them, because I felt like, one, I would be judged. Two, I was probably gonna get a lashing. Three, they wouldn't understand, and there would be no real solution. I feel like I would probably come down on, instead of provided with support or solutions, because there a lot of times, Nikki, in our community, while we are the victims, we're not seen that way. Children who are victims of sexual abuse or sexual assault growing up are seen as promiscuous. Because what did we do to call that on ourselves? Or if we had an uncle that lashed us for no reason, what did we do to cause our uncle or our family member to do that? So I am an advocate for parents creating safe spaces in their homes with the boundaries that are right and necessary. I believe that children should be able to speak to their parents about any topic. And I believe parents should give children the tools to be able to do that. Teaching your child in a healthy way how to approach conversations, how to approach you with the hard conversations without being rude or disrespectful. That is something my husband and I, we work very hard on. Are we perfect? Do we have all the answers? No. It's a learning curve, because my parenting is going to be different from yours, because, as I started out saying, you need to know your child, and you need to know how far you can go with your child and what will work. But you as a parent have to be open to receiving that, and understanding that while you are feared or respected, you should still create that space for your child to have a voice.
Correct.
So that's what I would say.
And I appreciate that.
Yes.
And even with my own daughter, I had to create that space for her. I had to ask her, like, what is it you like about my parenting?
Yes.
And what is it you don't like?
Yes.
And why?
Yes.
And so my daughter is a young lady who doesn't speak much in public. And so she may seem unassuming, but she observes a lot. And she's quite wise. And so she will say, Mommy, I don't like so and so because, and it makes sense. And so our conversations help me to even evaluate or reevaluate how I parent sometimes. And I try my best to be intentional with movie nights, which is our Saturday nights, right?
Very good.
So if I don't have to go anywhere on a Saturday night, I don't, because our Saturday night
is reserved for that.
No, this is the thing though. While we look forward to it, my daughter sometimes gets annoyed because when we start the movie,
you fall asleep.
I fall asleep. And every week she will say, Mommy, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this because you're, and I'm like, no, man.
Nikki, you have to reevaluate, Nikki.
I'm not going to fall. Midway, I just feel somebody. I need to do better, and I'm sure she's watching tonight, and so, sweetie.
Mommy is acknowledging. Yes. I want to share one thing. One of the things that I see work a lot with us at home when we're teaching both boys how to have conversation. My 5-year-old likes to raise his voice, and he pushes a lot of boundaries. And one of the things that I've taught him from an early age, and my 15-year-old, when they start to say something out of turn, instead of getting upset or angry at them, I ask them, is that how you want to speak to me? Is that how you want to communicate that information? And they'll pause. Well, my 5-year-old, he's not pausing. He just fixes it right away because he knows. So right away, if he goes up and, brings his voice over my head, and I say to him, is that how you want to speak to Mommy?
Yes.
Is that how you want to communicate that point? He'll come down with a very soft, respectful tone.
Wow.
And he'll say what he needs to say in a respectful way. But that took coaching.
Yeah. And patience.
And patience. And my 15-year-old, he'll pause and he'll think. You can see the wheels turning, that he's thinking about what he said and trying to understand where he went wrong.
Wow.
And then he'll say, because he doesn't accept failure that easily. Right. So he has to think, did I really say something out of turn? And then he might ask, if he's not sure, what did I say wrong? And I'll have a dialogue with him and say, it's not what you said, it's how you communicated what you wanted to say. And I'll go through that coaching with them. Because again, I don't want to strip them from the opportunity of expressing themselves.
Correct.
Because here I am telling you that no conversation is off bound. But I have to tell them how to bring that conversation to me. Because at the same time, you need to respectfully fear me. Like our person, Gina, I think, said something.
Yes.
Yes.
And Sir Edgar, thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely.
Sir Edgar, what would you say to another parent who is watching or listening tonight, who is scared but doesn't know where to start when it comes to protecting their child or children?
It begins with understanding the awesome responsibility, but also the divine privilege that you have to care for a soul lent to you by God. So every parent should have the mindset of protecting their child or children with their life. And it goes beyond being willing to give up your life for your child or your children. I think, and this is going back to something I heard my father say. It is not just about being willing to die for Christ, but it's more about being willing to live for Him.
Amen.
So we may be willing to die for our children, but I believe the greater responsibility
is living for them.
Is living for them. and doing all that it is in our power to do to ensure that they have a better life than the one we had.
Amen.
So I would have felt as a parent if my boys do not excel me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Profound.
Yes, I believe so too.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback on that real quickly?
Definitely.
I believe, I don't think I've heard anyone put it like that,
Wow.
living for your children. And right away, something went off in my brain. To make it more practical, what living for your children looks like is giving up, like you just said, yourself so that they can have. In my line of work, I see a lot of parents not doing that. I see a lot of selfishness in the way people parent, especially in homes that have gone apart, where husband and wife have gone their separate ways and there are children involved. So many times I see where the parents put their own needs above the children, and they forget in the process that this is about the children.
Wow.
And so all of what they do creates chaos and dysfunction for the children instead of providing them with that safe space we talked about. So living for your children looks like putting your selfish needs aside and thinking, how can I work with you as the parent? How can I co-parent with you to ensure, excuse me, that my child is always safe, even in my home? Because again, we do the most damage. People are closer to them, do the most damage to them in the way we abuse. Because abuse is not just about sexual exploitation. Abuse is emotional.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I see a lot of that. And emotional abuse is harder to curb. It's harder to respond to, because it's not tangible.
Yeah.
Whereas with sexual abuse, as damaging as it is, we can try to get the child back with different therapies and different services that we can provide.
Right.
But when the emotional abuse, when that child is broken down, it is hard to build them up. And a lot of times, parents don't think about these things.
Yeah.
They don't think about these things. So I really appreciated you saying that living for your child is what it takes. Because it's easier to say that you'll die for the child. But putting your selfish needs aside and living for creating that space for the child that is going to be needed for them to be successful in all areas of their life, that's hard.
And to be healthy holistically.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
that's so important.
Yes.
And so I have one final question for each of you. And so you may have answered it already, Sir Edgar, but my question to you is, if you could tell every adult watching right now or even listening one thing they can do to help protect children in their own community, what would it be? And the community, you know, involving the church, the school, holistically, what is one thing they can do to help protect children?
One thing they could do is to ensure they are not the abuser.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Repeat.
Absolutely.
Repeat for those in the back.
I don't think nothing else is to be said.
This is it. And if I had on my wig tonight, I would throw it.
Yes, I don't believe anything else needs to be said, because if you are not the abuser, if everybody should ensure that they're not the abuser, what a beautiful community we would have.
Wow. Repeat.
Yeah.
Repeat, sir.
Yes.
I know Mrs. McLeod just said it, but I go ahead.
Ensure you're not the abuser. You're not the source of hurt.
Yes.
You're not the source of discomfort. You're not the stress.
That is it.
You're not the one causing
the trauma. Yes.
In the young child's life, or the sister's life, or the brother's life, or the parent life, or the child's life.
Wow.
Yes. Yes, Nikki, I agree with the wow.
I could not listen. I am still.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes, sir. From a social worker to an educator. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. That's so profound.
Yes.
You know, and Mrs. McLeod, my final question
For me.
to you. Yes,
You
yes.
know what I'm gonna say?
After that one, right?
I don't know what I'm gonna say because I don't know that there is anything left to say.
Listen, but what does protecting
Yeah.
our children truly mean to you? Not just as a social worker,
Mm-hmm.
not just as a mom,
Mm-hmm.
but as a human being.
Protecting them is truly allowing them to live their full potential
Amen. Amen.
in a safe environment,
Amen.
regardless of where that is.
Amen.
And the way you do that is ensuring that you're not the abuser.
I will never
Yeah.
forget that.
Yeah. That's it.
That's it.
That is it, because every child deserves the opportunity to grow in an environment that is free from harm
Amen.
and danger.
Yes.
And we are the perpetrators of
Yeah.
danger and harm.
Yeah.
So if we introspectively look at how we
Yeah.
sometimes unknowingly, because like I said, go back to the fact that abuse is not just about sexual or even
True.
physical. So sometimes we're not cognizant of the emotional damage we're doing to our children, just by
children.
existing, just by
Yeah.
not living for them.
Yeah. Or making them feel worthless.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Just that alone can cause our children to grow into adults
Mhm.
feeling unloved.
Yeah, the cycle just
unaccepted,
continues.
and just surviving
Yeah.
and do not know what it feels like
Mhm.
to live,
Mhm.
you know? And so when we are able to pour positivity into our children,
Yeah.
can you imagine
Right.
what a world we will have with healthy
Healthy children.
adults?
Yes.
You know, when we start at the foundation,
Yes.
man,
Yes.
let us not be the perpetrators.
Yes.
That word.
Of the abuse. Yes. And to each person that is present.
Yeah.
If we live with that,
Yeah.
either whether you're watching or you're in this room,
Yes.
if we are listening, if we live with that and we purpose in our hearts
Yeah.
to ensure that in our actions we're not the abusers,
Let it start with me.
we will have a beautiful community,
Very
a beautiful home.
So,
Yeah.
and you know, as we wrap up this
Mhm.
powerful session, I want to leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen, and children, if you're watching. Children are not just our future. They are right now.
Mhm.
They watch us, they learn from us, and they need us, whether they say it or not. I am privileged to have both my parents alive, and I can tell you, as an adult, I still need my parents.
Yeah.
I'm still a daddy's girl.
Yes.
So let's stay aware, let's stay connected, and stay ready to protect, educate, and empower the next generation. Because when we protect our children, we protect our legacy.
Mhm.
If today's conversation lit a fire in you, don't let it die out. Have the conversation with your children. Talk with them. Check in with your students if you're educators. Educate your neighbors if you talk to your neighbors. And keep the conversation going using the hashtag Flashtalk Uncut. I got the privilege to do that tonight.
Yes.
Thank you to our amazing panelists,
Yeah.
Mrs. McLeod and Sir Edgar.
Mhm.
I felt as though I was in a room having a conversation with a lot of persons. That's how engaging you were in the conversation. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Right? It was your pleasure, right? Say it now.
Bye.
It was my utmost pleasure.
And to you, our fantastic audience, and you watching from wherever you are, those of you who were on Zoom, those of you on YouTube and all our other platforms, even the online radio, Thank you. And those of you who are in house who
Yes.
aim to keep our company
Yes.
and to ensure everything was working okay. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, this is Flash Talk, the Uncut Edition, where truth meets talk and nothing is off limits. Stay bold, stay informed, and above all, protect our children. But before we go, Mikey, don't close me out just yet. I do have some flyers.
It's just information.
Just information.
May Child Month, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Miss
Go
Nicole.
ahead.
May is Child Month, and the Department of Children and Family Services has partnered with community agencies to provide various activities and workshops throughout the community for the month of May. Some of them are already gone, some are upcoming, and I wanted to mention there is a grand sports day that will be this Saturday, May 24th. It's from 4 to 8. So all community members who are able to go out, I know this cuts right into our Sabbath as Seventh-day Adventists, but it's up until 8. So you still have an opportunity to participate. It will be at the Annex, Georgetown, and it is for the entire family. Saturday, May 24th, we also have a district movie night. We've been doing movie nights in the districts from East End to West Bay.
Right.
And so we have the West Bay movie nights coming up. And we also have the East End movie night coming up.
Wow.
And the intergenerational game night that is old and young, everybody coming together. And that is going to be on the 30th of May,
Right.
7 to 9 at the Intergenerational Hub.
Right.
And also we have I'm looking for the movie night for it's the 23rd, so I guess this Friday it's going to be in West Bay,
Right.
7 to 9 at the John A. Cumber School Hall.
Right.
And it's also the movie night for East End, and that is going to be, I believe, the same night in East End at the Civic Center.
And can they find this information at the Department of
Children and Family Services?
Online?
Yes, they can find it online, or if they reach out to us.
Yes.
I also want to say, if you know of a child that is being abused in any way, reach out to the MASH. They are located on Eastern Avenue, upstairs. No, DCFS is at Apollo House on Mary Street. You can come there and do any report. You can email into the DCFS office, or you can walk into MASH as well or speak to any police. Go to any RCIP station to report abuse. Please don't say it's none of my business. Please report abuse when you know it is happening.
Thank you so much. And there you have it. Is there any number, like if parents, may need help with some parenting tips on how to keep their children safe? Is there any number available? Or just say where to go?
Unfortunately, I guess I wasn't prepared for this.
That
but
is quite fine.
For parenting information, the Family Resource Center does an awesome job with providing support on parenting, or any family oriented. They do counseling at the counseling center as well, and they're located in the same building.
Right.
And you can come to DCFS. Our office is located Mary Street at the Apollo House on the second floor, Apollo House East. And we can provide you with that information.
And there you have it. Thank you so much. And as we go tonight, remember our Flash Family Trivia, and that comes up on Saturday night, May 31st, 7:30 p.m. and that's 269 West Bay Road, right here in studio. So now you know where we are located. So come on down on Thursday, May 31st for our Flash Family Trivia. Have yourselves a wonderful night. This is Flash Talk, the Uncut Edition. Say it just how you feel it.
No filters, no fluff, just real talk with the full Flashpoint fam. Get with it.
From hot takes to belly laughs, the crew is locked in and ready.
From debates that might get a little spicy, including all VIP members.
This is where vibes meets voice, drops meets proof, and we talk things.
We are here to get real.
It's raw, it's real, and it's about time.
Big conversations. This is Flashtalks, the Uncut Edition. Flash fam. What are the things then now?
Real people, real voices, real conversations.
Flash Talk, the Uncut Edition, at 7 p.m. every Thursday, right here on Flashpoint.